Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Donitsa here and editor on the other side of the country. And today we have a wonderful guest and her name is Sandy. While Sandy is a daughter, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and soon to be a great grandmother, she also does her best to suit up and show up to do what Spirit asks her to do on a daily basis. Beautiful. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you, ladies, very, very much. I appreciate the invitation to join you today.
Wonderful. Happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And could you tell us a little bit more about that spirit, you?
Oh,
Who
so
is Sandy?
that is such a long. I have to warn everybody. I am a Gemini, at least in Western astrology, which means I have the gift of gab. So I forewarn you. So just right off the bat. But my journey has been, I was born with giftings. I believe everybody's born with giftings. Just think that life happens and we kind of start our journey and get derailed now and then and we unplug. And for me, I found that when I unplugged, my life went to heck. And I ended up going through and experiencing things I think that I felt like I needed to experience. So, for those of you that are going through hard times, whenever that is, don't feel like you're not passing any tests. Just always feel like you're moving through. And what can I experience and learn out of it and grow from? So, for me, it's always, I feel like from 6 years on, I kind of woke up at six, right around that age. I don't remember much of my childhood beforehand. I had a good childhood. My parents are phenomenal. I just felt like I didn't really start remembering things until I was six. And at that point, I remember seeing spirit in my room and telling me that I was protected, that they were like 2 or 3 feet off the floor and whatnot. And then we had things that happened in that house. And so there's a lot of backstory to that. But I started to recognize that I could hear people speak when their mouths weren't moving, see things that weren't other people weren't seeing, and then just kind of kept quiet and kept on the background a little bit. But then I just kind of did life from 6 years on. I don't think I even spoke to my parents a whole lot till I was 16 about my experiences because then I was do you guys remember back, or at least for me, I had a princess phone in my room at 16 and I had my own phone number. So I was like top shelf, I felt like. And I dropped a girlfriend off. And one of my experiences, I thought that, dang, she was really, really good. In that I was laying in my bed thinking about the fact that um, she wanted to talk to me, but she was in the shower because I could see water coming down on her. And I think this is one of people's biggest freaks outs that they think spirit or somebody that can do the work that we do can see them in all their intimate moments. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, that's not what I saw. I just saw water, right? I just knew that she was in the shower and that she had something she wanted to tell me. So I gave her time and then I called her up and she said, "Oh, I'd forgotten to tell you something. I was in the shower and I just remembered." I'm like, dang, dang, she's good, right? I didn't even know that I needed to own that it was me seeing it like a movie screen in my mind. That friend, fast forward, part of my journey is really connected to her. I had left Southern California. It's where I was raised, is in San Diego County, and I had left there. Had a very normal childhood. And about 22, right in that time frame, I started to wake up on a very deeper level. 16 is when that happened, and I always knew people at school. I could feel them and whatnot, but I didn't delve into it. I just was a regular kid, so to speak, whatever regular is. About 22, 23, I really started to wake up because that friend came to me. I was in the living room with my parents, and I had a ringing in my ears that was different, and I knew that somebody was trying to contact me. So I told my parents, I needed to go into the room, and would they watch my son for me? I had a 20-month-old son at the time. And I went in and came back out and said, "Polly's passing away." And she wanted to let me know that she was going home and that she was fine and gave me her stuff. The next day, a mutual friend contacted me that we'd all known each other since fourth grade. And she had said, "Well, I needed to let you know that Polly Ramos had passed away." And so I had actually said, I know, thank you. We visited and stuff about it and whatnot. And I remember going back to my house because I got a house soon after that. I lived with my parents for about 3 months and going through one of those relationships that I call the starter husband. And so I learned a lot about how to love myself in that relationship. So just kind of look at relationships of what can I learn out of them. And for me, I sat there and remember thinking, what does spirit want me to do? This doesn't go away. It's always there in my life. I stop paying attention to it, think I'm in control of things, and then it gets all screwed up, right? Because I really needed to learn to let go of control in a lot of ways. Just talk to my husband now. And so for me, that began the journey really as an adult. I mean, I had lots of things that happened to me in between birth to 22, but like 22, right in there is about when I really started to ignite and start to recognize that this was a gifting and what did I need to do with it. And from there, I lived in very small towns. I had moved away from San Diego area and then moved up to a very remote area of about 100 people. And so Spirit was very clear with me that it was for me to go inward. And I think this is true for everybody, that I think you're going to find the answers in the quieter you become. I think Rumi has a very classic saying in all of that. But I think Spirit for me is, I remember my dad telling me, Sandy, you really need to think before you speak. And he didn't mean that rudely, but I think as Geminis, we're kind of out here sometimes. And so there's definitely that part of myself, and I needed to learn how to center. But I always did my learning and my growing in places that were very small, very remote. There was not self-help books back then. I mean, they were just starting to come out into the market a little bit, but they weren't readily in the library, for goodness sake. So I did end up, I think, what is it? Louise L. Hay had started her production company, her publishing company. So there was starting to be a little bit more of that. And so I was always very interested in people's emotions. And for me, what I've learned over the years is that my gifting in the last 40 years has really kind of been ebb and flow. I've always said I just suit up and show up and do what divine asked me to do. And yet, in that process, I think it was very important for me to recognize where does that where does that feel right or not feel right, or not with what spirit shows me to do, but when I think it's going to go away, I just need to go a certain direction. I need to just get back, get centered, grounded, and attuned. More easily said grounded, right? But that's the way I do it. I come to center, and then I ground into the earth, and then I connect into the divine and go from there because it's easier to do the work. This is a sidebar. Remind me where I was at there in a minute. So, for you ladies, or for anybody out there that's listening to this, have you ever had somebody say to you, get yourself grounded? I remember somebody telling me that when I was 22, 23, and I'm like, what? My feet are on the ground. I'm grounded, right? It's like, what do you mean? And being a Gemini, I'm very much a thinker, but I'm also could live out in this space that's this airy space that it made me feel like, well, I'm a lot smarter than what I sound right now. So I better figure out this grounding stuff. And so I spent a long time figuring that out. But the minute that I had a healer show me come to center, because it said that the seat of the soul is right here in the center of our being, right? And so come to the center, learn how to do ground and get some yummy stuff, which I have a free PDF on my website. So I can always share that with you, right? Later on, let you know where that's at. And then attune to the divine so that you are here living a human existence. And so being in your body, I have found that my intuitiveness ramped up even more when I got very connected to my body, which seems kind of strange to say. Does that resonate with either one of you, though?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just easier. We can interact, right? We can always interact. So, so
Absolutely.
for, yep. And so for me, during that time at 22, I learned how and started to gain the practice and experiencing and experiment, which is, I've got some cool stories with that too. But for me, first spirit at about 25, spirit started to throw me into murder cases. Now, what I mean by this, murder cases, missing person cases. So part of my journey was always learning how to go inward, how to tap into the divine, And I was always interested in the chakra system. So your energy system, and I love to do research, of course. I'm a researcher at heart, and I love theology. And so for me, I always try to find the common thread in things. So I take different religions, different theologies, different um, mythology, and any of that kind of stuff. I've always been interested. And I take that and then take the common thread in it. And to me, the chakra system is something that's in 9 different cultures. It's a little different, a little interesting. But so for me, I found that learning the chakra system, the energy system within and around your body that comprises and makes up your aura, was fascinating because there was so much information that our body holds on to. And that I realized one of my gifting was being able to go in and see where the emotions get locked into the physical body and where we get stuck. And so from that, I just began getting a system that I could do. I think everybody has a little different system in the way that spirit works with them that way. And so that to me is always cool. So when you read a book, when you work with somebody, don't get locked into it necessarily. Take it as information, digest it in, and then begin to listen to how spirit works with you and begin to formulate your own way and your own coding. Because we always kind of like, when we're learning how to tap into ourselves, learning how to love ourselves and all of this, we kind of will sometimes go out there and try to, well, I want to be like them. And I tell you, when I do group sessions with people that are weeks long and that we're learning how to tap into your own thing, what's so beautiful is if you stop comparing yourself to everybody else and you just begin to listen and feel free enough to just listen and see and sense and open your heart up to yourself, that's when the yumminess happens, right? That's when you figure out your own giftings. And then by the end of it, because I had 5 women in this class, and by the end of it, each one's gifting was so beautiful and complemented everybody else's that it was so much fun. And it was so amazing that 6 women in a room could get quiet, right? At one time, and then go in and begin to compare notes and look at things. So anyway, so please, when you're doing this, always pay attention and honor how spirit works with you individually. Okay. Information that you bring in, whether it's somebody telling you in an intuitive session, like when I work with clients on one, I'm connected to my higher self and bringing that information down in ways that I see, smell, hear, taste, and feel things. So I've got my intuition all plugged in. And it's a rarity that I taste things, but I will tell you, you never know, right? Don't limit yourself is what I always say. If you limit yourself, you lose out on things. So keep yourself open. And the one time that I remember, I mean, it's happened before, but I remember I was reading for a lady that was in Florida. And so I was opening up to it. I'm like, why am I tasting the best tasting peach that I've tasted in like years? And she goes, I just ate a peach. And it was really good. And I'm like, dang, I want that really. But it was fun that I got to sense it and taste it and things. So that was really, really nice. So you just never know. And sometimes we smell things when loved ones pass away. We might smell their cologne, their cherry tobacco. You never know, and it'll hit you so quickly that you don't second guess it. Intuition happens so quickly out of nowhere in a nanosecond. Imagination kind of takes you off on a bunny trail and you're thinking about things and whatnot. The intuition just kind of clicks in. And we're not taught how to pay attention to our intuition, are we? It's so sad to me. And it's so easy. I think people think I'm not a good salesperson because my thing in life is to help you connect to yourself to understand that you never really need me, that you actually have all the answers within yourself. But we're not taught that in school. We're not taught that at home. Lots of times, if we are, you're a lucky one. You're really, truly lucky that somebody taught you how to stay connected, how to pay attention, how to listen to your own way of getting your own coding, because that's where the joy of life is when you can interact on a spiritual level. Oh, it just becomes yummy. Now, does it always mean that things are going to be peaches and cream?
No.
No. No,
but we are healers to ourselves. And this is what
exactly.
I think more and more people are waking up to this understanding right now. Yes.
Yes, and it's so important because right now, in this very interesting time that we're moving through, right? There is am I allowed to say potty words to some degree?
To some degree.
To some degree, there's a shit show happening, people, right? There is just this world is bonkers, it feels like right now. And yet the best thing that you can do in the for a lot of people, 2, 3 years ago, we started to feel as if the energy in the world was shifting. You may have felt like you could tap into things that you never felt were so easy to tap into. So we were shifting gears in a way. And so, for a lot of us that were felt like we could tap in, we kind of had to go and tap in. Now it's just it's here. It's like the realms have shifted. And yet there's a lot of people feeling like they're more sensitive than ever. They're not quite sure what's happening to their own physical body, let alone the waterworks. Like there was a gal, yes, in church. This gal told me one time, it's okay, your water table's just a little high. Spirit sent me to church to heal. That's a whole nother story. So because I thought I was being thrown to the wolves, but I wasn't. And so anyway, whole nother story. But what happens is when you begin to open yourself up, sometimes your emotions get a little higher and you feel as if your water tables are a little high and you need to cry. So I always say, allow yourself that space. Don't stuff it. Right now, more than ever, we need to honor where we're at, but we need to watch when we're stepping into fear. And that is so easy to do because it's so present out there when you listen to podcasts, when you listen to television, when you listen. Now, I'm not going to get political on you because it has nothing to do with politicalness, okay? It has to do that there's a lot of fear out there in the world, and they want you to buy into the bull to keep you in a fear space. And right now, it's really, really important and so much easier to get centered within yourself, grounded and attuned, so that you can walk out into the world more divinely connected than ever. And you don't have to be too woo woo. It can be very practically applicated, right? And yet, when you're not dealing with your emotions, it feels like there's a heightened awareness of anxieties, right? Anxieties and panic attacks and things like that, because there's a sense of going out there and tapping into that fear space. And so allowing yourself those times, I mean, there's medical things that go on too, right? So, but when we feel like our emotions are out of balance, we have a tendency to stuff things. And I always say journaling is key. I don't know about you ladies, but Spirit has always told me that it's always a good thing to either do an audio version of your journaling or talk therapy at least. And then also journaling because your hands are part of your arms, which are part of your shoulders, which are part of your heart chakra, and heart chakra, shoulders to sternum within and around the body. It's about being enough. And right now, a lot of people don't feel like they're enough. Okay, and if any of you watching this don't think that any of these ladies sitting right here haven't dealt with that, let me tell you, we have. So it's very important to recognize we're walking the walk. And this is probably why we share what we share in the world with people, because it's how we've healed. It's, yes, been a calling, but you may have a new calling right now that feels like I need to figure out what's going on with myself. I'm not being narcissistic. I actually am trying to love myself enough so that I can begin a healing process, because while there are individuals in this world that can be helpers for you, that can hold a space for you, you still have to do the work. And so part of that is listening to what Spirit is saying to you. So by doing that, when you get quiet enough to journal and to really tap into things or to learn, I'm going to scare people with this one, right? Meditation. And somebody just cursed. I heard you. So you just cursed and you said meditation, because learning to quiet the mind is not necessarily what we're talking about here. Learning to allow the flow of your mind and honoring what's coming in and out so that you can be in a space to receive is what we're talking about, right? So finding time for meditation, 5-minute meditations. Okay, I start people off with 2 in our groups because I literally have people go, there's no way. And there's usually potty words involved in this too. So there's no way I can meditate. And why do I have to meditate? Because the quieter you become, the more you're going to hear. And when we say quiet, it just means allowing it first, set an alarm on your phone for 2 minutes. It doesn't even have to be 5. You can try it with music or without music, no heavy metal music. I even say, well, that gets you in your root chakra usually. So that brings up a whole nother thing. But getting into that space of whether you want just, to me, just instrumental or maybe background sounds of the ocean, whatever's kind of floats your boat, and try some different things. It can be certain frequency things that you can do. There's a lot of stuff out there, but try it with some music, instrumental, set for 2 minutes, and just breathe in through your nose. You could try breathe out through your mouth and relax into your body with each exhale, and just kind of note where your mind goes. Now, if you get stuck in it, just go, okay, thank you. There's my to-do list. Yes, I need to call Bob, right? Whatever that it is, and allow it to go through your mind. And so allowing things to flow, because you don't want to block things. If you're sitting there going, okay, a lot of people think that when they need to meditate, they need to be like the monk. They need to sit in a certain pose and they need to visualize themselves being away from everything. Now, let's get real. None of us are monks sitting on a mountaintop. I'm not berating monks who get to do this, right? I'm just saying, let's be real. We are not. A lot of us are got busy lives. And so this is something new to try and quiet ourselves because we have something coming up and we need to connect to our soul being. And so allowing yourself that space and giving it a try, and then bump it up every minute, or each time you try it, bump it up a little bit after each time. Does that make sense? So that you're giving yourself a space, and so that you can get to 5 minutes. Okay, you don't have to get to an hour. Just try 5-minute meditations to help connect with yourself. That is one thing that I had to really work on, in a sense of, I will tell you the secret to that, because for me, I had to control things. And
Gemini.
so Gemini, we're the
That's a
thinkers, but
Gemini.
there's a lot of people that try to control things. And let me tell you, we do that out of our lives for multiple reasons. And I know that a lot of people out there have had childhoods that have not been good. Okay. They had to control the things around them that they felt that they could control, because the rest of it was a shit show. Okay, because they didn't feel right. There was certain things going on in their world. So we feel like the more that we can control our life, the more that we're going to be in control of things, and it's going to be safer for us, right? On an emotional level, a physical level, sometimes even as well, right? So for me, I was just a control freak. I control things. So I just had to really learn that the yumminess came in life when I trusted in God, I trusted in spirit, I trusted in the universe, that spirit had my back, and that if I could set everything down, that's where the yumminess would happen. And by golly, that was true. So for me, I could learn to slip away and go away, but yet stay connected as well. And it was a peaceful state of being. But how I learned that is a unique thing. The first step in learning to let go, I was 25. I lived on my own. I lived 20 miles away from my folks. And my dad was always worried that his daughter was going to reach the pearly gates before him, which is funny that he would say that, because he said he was atheist or didn't really believe in all that stuff, go to church or anything. My mom taught Sunday school, so there's my background. My mom was very open, very loving, could always sense when people in the family died. My dad, I always told him, you probably were Merlin in another life or like that, and you misused your giftings, because his story is he would go play poker, or do have a party with the guys, and they probably were drinking and stuff. And then what would happen is glasses would come flying out of the kitchen cupboards at the friend's house and stuff. So he always associated with scary things happening, right? My mom didn't have that. My dad did. So my dad, when I started to experiment, which is always one-on-one with spirit, right? One-on-one, I was going to go inward, try to channel. I was going to try to channel down things at 25 with my 5-year-old son, 6-year-old son in the other room, gone to bed. I was going to go into a state of zenfulness and figure out how to bring spirit in. Okay. There was no book. I lived in a town of 2,000 people now, right? So it was like I just tried it. And so for those of you that know astrology, I think the only fire in my chart is like in this realm of learning this kind of stuff. So anyway, I go in and I try this channeling stuff. And long story short is I had great stuff of learning how to tap in and listen to spirit and how to do that. And for me, there was this abyss that you go into that is like in between the realms a little bit. And I could see things that there was like nothing. And then there was everything. And so it's like a jump off point that you had to let go of everything. And that was huge for me to completely let go of things. No drugs needed, no alcohol needed. And I would highly recommend never doing that. So for me, it was always very clear. No, no. And I know that there's a lot of people that like to think of doing the ayahuasca or different retreats. That's different. And that's under guiding of other people. For me, spirit was always very clear. No alcohol, no drugs, nothing like that. You had to do this very clear conscious. Okay. So for me, I hope I'm going to be okay telling this because I want you to know that we are all divinely protected. But when I tell this story, it's kind of one of those ones where it's like, well, shit, I'm never going to do this. And I'm not saying that you need to learn how to channel, but in this, I want to just tell it because it's kind of an interesting story. And it also leads me to another story that's connected. So my dad lives 20 miles away. I go in, I have 2 great sessions during the week. Later on in the week, I have my 3rd session and I get a hold of this entity that says, I want to show you something. I said, great, let's go ahead and go. And so I go and do this. And I follow him and he turns back around, make sure I'm there. And then I'm going down the rabbit's hole. And all of a sudden, I'm not getting real comfortable. I feel like I can't move. It doesn't feel right. Something's not right. And I can't get away from it. Okay. This doesn't feel good. And this is a rarity that these things happen. And there's a reason this happened to me, is why I'm telling you this. And so I go in and I see where he changes and I feel like this is not good. I need to get out of this. Okay. So whenever you feel that, you need to back away and get out. Well, at this point, I'd waited too long and didn't feel like I could. And so the next thing I know, I feel as if a hand has come up and yanked me out of the hole. And I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And I wrote and I journaled all about it. Scared me to death, right? I'm like, what the heck was that about? So 2 weeks later, I'm having dinner with my parents, and we never talked about this stuff with my grandmother around, my noni. And so my dad brings it up, and I'm going to say verbatim what my father said, which was not pretty. Okay. So I hope I'm okay. I see Donita going, oh no, what's she going to say? Okay, I'll paraphrase it and not say the potty words. What in the world were you doing 2 weeks ago, last Thursday? I saw the dang devil come after you, and I'd go in and save your derriere. There's a nice way of saying it, and pull you out of that. Now you knock that stuff off. I don't. You need to knock this stuff off. And my feeling was, oh God, it was real. So then I went back into spirit because I'm very driven when I bite onto something and I'm told by spirit, you're going to be doing this work. This is what you're going to be doing. My next thing to spirit was, well, why in the world did you allow that to happen? Why did you have me experience something? And so what spirit told me at that time was, you're going to be doing the work of everything of that is what is not of God, and what is of God. Let us show you the divine realms now. And so then they took me into the divine realms because it was very clear to me, and I was very safe during that, but it was a feeling of like, oh my God, this isn't good. And then I was pulled out. So then they showed me the divine realms, and that's where I came back. I always say I wasn't suicidal, so don't take it the wrong way. It was like, oh my God, we live in hell. We kind of create a hell. The hell's right here that we live in. Can't we just all touch upon that? Because if we all could touch upon the divine realms that are all within us, it's a connection that we have that we forget. And it's so peaceful. We'd never have war. We'd never have the fears that we have here. But yet, Spirit said, well, you guys come down here to figure out about emotions. So my passion had always been about emotions and what they teach us, what we need to learn, because there's gifts in those things that we shouldn't be fearful of them, but we need to always make sure to reach out and get the help that we need. So through that time frame of being 25 and having that happen and being shown the divine realms and blessed in that way, I just always want to help people open up to their higher self, to learn how to connect their own unique way to their divine, because I believe, I will tell you right off the bat, you can call divine by a lot of names, and to me they're all the same. So I don't limit myself in that way. I see the connection through all that goodness and how to set the fears down, because a lot of people got programmed in childhoods or in outside social realms that they think that they're bad or that they have to act a certain way and don't do this. And then, because there's a lot of people opening up that have a fear that they have to follow a certain path to be a good person, but yet their intuitiveness is opening up and it's so counter to what they were taught. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
And they live in fear of how to, if I do that, that makes me a bad person. And when I was doing missing persons cases, they've always been pro bono. And when I've done them, I've had people tell me as a young mother, you know, you're doing the work of the devil. And I was like, how is this the work of the devil? I'm bringing closure to families, helping a spirit to move on and things like that, that's a misconception. And yet, how can we have a background and still be good with who we are and open ourselves up to God in a higher way of being? Does that make sense? And so for me, I love to help people in a very practical way to open up, to learn how to use their giftings, open up in a safe way of using their giftings, because you are naturally protected. To quit watching horror movies, quit watching baloney on the TV, quit it. It's full of hooey. And so,
and politics.
and politics, yes. It's full of
We,
hooey.
yes,
So,
we are creating the hell or
yes,
whatever
we
it is,
do.
we are creating this for ourselves.
You
Yes.
know, yeah. And it's funny because I always equate it, spirit shows it like we're always diamonds, right? We're always diamonds in the rough. And so when we go through spiritual journeys that will bring us literally to our knees, right? And even at my age, a couple of years back, I was literally on bent knee and like bawling my eyes out, angry and pissed off to the hilt, thinking this is not spiritual, this is not good. And yet it's in those times when we're brought down and having to let go of another layer of the way that we've always processed things, that the gifting comes. And it doesn't, I always equate it, because I work with a lot of people that have been in the church and things like that. And I'm not saying church is bad. It's just sometimes the way that things are taught, it's a little iffy, right? And so to me, you want to honor who you are, and yet you need to look at what spirit's working with you when you are brought to bent knee and you are really working on it. You got to let go and you got to trust and you got to let go of the ego. The ego is an important thing in our lives because it helps us in many ways, but when it keeps us stuck because we're living in a fear space, we got to let go of that fear. We got to trust in God, trust in spirit, trust in the universe that is truly there to guide us in a way to move forward in a way that is healthy for us. And if we are plugged into distruth, which believe me, the more you plug in and you let go of ego, you know what is truthful and what is not. And when I'm talking truthful, I'm talking about a divine truth, and it's not an ego truth. And so the more you can do that with yourself and understand and really love yourself on a deep level, then that's where the yumminess comes in. But if anybody tells you that a spiritual journey isn't trying and will bring you to your knees and will have you questioning everything in your world, they're fibbing. Okay, because it does, it just rocks your world. But it's when we step back out, then it's kind of funny. It reminds me of my Jack Russells. It's like after they've done their thing, It's like, and they strut their feet, and it's like, that wasn't hard, not at all, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I'm so glad I moved through it. It was so hard. And I never want to share it when I'm moving through it. It's hard for me to move through things, and I don't feel like I understand it. So I don't want to share it with just anybody or stuff. And so, what I would tell you is during those times when things are tough, I do have certain people I do talk to, because whether you're a Gemini or not, when things get shoved down into our bodies, into our emotional bodies, into different facets of our being, and we don't know how to shine a light onto it, usually getting it off of ourselves, whether we're writing it out, or whether we're speaking it out, working with a really good counselor. So, yes, I did use the word counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist. You've got to find the right one. Healers as well. I'm very clear with people in my world, in my office here, that there's lots of times that we do need to talk to somebody, and you need to find the right person to do with it, because I'm not a counselor. I'm always very clear with that. And yet I work in tandem with that, so that we work together to help you let go of things, to help you grow spiritually in things, and work together nicely with somebody. So it's very important to have the key people in your world, and to be very honest with yourself, but very compassionate, very honest, but yet compassionate, and hold a space for yourself of love as you're moving through these times. Because in these times, reconnecting with your higher self is going to help you to help your human existence as well. So for me, that's been my journey all along, and it never stops. I've always asked Spirit. I kind of get, if I feel like I'm in a bored space, I'm like, oh, I'm getting bored. Am I getting too sanitary? It's sanitary, not sanitary, sanitary. And I just like flatlining. I don't want to flatline. I always want to grow. I always want to cultivate. But there are times when we do need to just sit in the yumminess, sit in the space of being. And so teaching yourself how to do that is very important. And there's a lot of books out there nowadays, and there's a lot of authors that write about the same subjects. There's a lot of healers and people that are there to help you in the world. You just got to find the one that resonates for you and that is for you. And sometimes you've had someone for a while, right? And they've been that person that's your go-to, and then you feel like things are shifting, and then you go and find somebody else, and that's okay. That's good. That means you're growing, you're shifting, and you're changing. There's nothing wrong with that. And so, and sometimes you find that friendships go by the wayside, right? So I always say, as long as you're not being narcissistic and arrogant, if you're not being see, the words that I like to use on that is, you're not being vindictive or vicious to anybody. We never want to be vindictive or vicious. People that are true narcissists, that's a whole nother thing. That's a part of cluster B. That's part of mental illness, and that's for a whole nother subject, right? And so those people will teach you boundaries, right? Okay. So in the process, you've got to find where, and all of us, anybody that is intuitive, anybody that is sensitive, is usually going to come up against a narcissist at some point in their lives. So learning boundaries is very important no matter who you are. And so learning how to love yourself enough to step away from all of that. So anyway, it's very important nowadays, at least I have always felt, that how to find that connection with yourself, start doing some work with yourself. And that comes in forms of getting quiet, can actually be a massage. It can be getting that yummy space for yourself, and realizing that your cup, if it's cracked, it's like the oxygen mask on first, right? You've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. If your vessel, if your human body is leaking everywhere, if your energy is drained, you've got to build up your vessel, get yourself healed first before you can really go do the work for anybody else or to help assist them. So as mamas, we get exhausted. And then what happens when we get exhausted? We shut down and or we get bitchy. So we really need to make sure that we're falling in love with ourselves in a way that allows us to heal and find that space within to give ourselves that little bit of yumminess. And it's hard when the kids are young, I know. So, but if you're feeling sensitive and you're feeling like you feel like you're starting to open up and you're starting to want to cultivate and grow yourself, it's writing yourself on your calendar, right, ladies? Because a
Yeah.
lot of times we're caregivers, right? Sensitive people are caregivers. They want to help to take care of others. Learn to take care of yourself first and make sure when you need to back off a little bit, because you can't always be there for everybody else. You got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself first, and then you can step into the role of caregiver when you need to. And for me, this is what I've had to do. And I have stubbed my toe along the way multiple times. I still have spiritual journeys, thank God, right? Every day I'm thankful that I still get to grow, I still get to experience and know. I call them, it's like our 40 days or 40 nights or 40 years in the desert. You know, there are things in that biblical book that are really cool to pull out, right? So that you're like, oh, I can use that as an analogy. And so one thing that's really cool when you are moving through these times and cultivating and growing yourself, pay attention. Some of us get songs in our heads. Do either one of you get songs in your heads or just little things? They're
Yeah.
such little gifts, aren't they? They just become a little mini mantra for the day sometimes, or they kind of tell on yourself a little bit. And how we speak to ourselves is key. It's very, very key what we're programming our brains with. So it's very key to listen to what you're saying to yourself on a daily basis. So, all
Oh,
right.
Sandy. Oh, Sandy. That is so beautiful, so rich, and so amazing. Like your
Thank
life
you.
is magical.
Much
I
fun
have,
and very interesting
thank
stories
you.
of yours.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with
Thank
us.
you for having me here. And it's like, I'm sorry. I try not to say I'm sorry. I do
Well,
have a gift of gab. So I
well, you
do.
are true Gemini
Mhm.
and you're
I'm sure,
embracing it. Mm?
yes, I'm sure a lot of people will resonate with you. A
Yeah,
lot of people are so gifted and they just don't know what to do with that. And so you give us a lot of tools and a lot of wisdom that came from your
exactly.
experiences in your life. So thank
You
you
know,
so much for
thank
that.
you for being so open and willing to
Oh,
share and willing to, because right now I feel like on the collective, before we finish, because we're way
mhm.
past, but that's where
Sorry.
Good.
no, 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 no,
It
it's
was
perfect because I was like feeling into
you.
the
We didn't
energy.
want to stop you.
No, because it's rich. It's,
Yes.
we've had comments before that is like, oh, I wish it was a bit longer, sometimes.
Yeah.
But what I feel, what you've shared, we're right at this pivotal time as a collective, as a
Mhm.
whole, at
Very
this
much.
shedding one layer. So their discomfort is very potent at the moment.
Yes.
So
It is. It's very, and it has people shutting themselves off in a lot of ways. And so what they need to do is not shut themselves off, but kind of shut that down, but not shut down, but just turn off some of that stuff that
noise.
where you can, the noise, the distruths of things, and just say, I just can't do that right now. And it's okay. It's okay that you can't do that. Yeah, I
That's
could go on and
perfect.
on, but that's the main thing. And to turn inward and to start and to watch because um, when we're like for me, I'm a foodie. Who's a foodie? I'm a foodie. I go to comfort food, right? And it's like because I want comfort. And sometimes when I'm doing that, it's because I don't want to go into my emotions. I don't want to go in there. And it's like, no, that's when journaling, that's when seeking guidance with someone can be very helpful so that you know that you're safe. You
Mhm.
are safe. And yet there's times in our lives when you're maybe not in a safe relationship. And so reaching out when you are and knowing that I love that spirit shows me people's lives and their soul because their souls are beautiful. Everybody's soul is beautiful and everybody feels broken. So my job is to help you remember that you're beautiful. And I mean that. Sorry, I'm turning red. So,
Okay.
Oh, it's
It's just very, and you mentioned a few times that going through the spiritual journey, going within, sometimes is uncomfortable, or most of the time
mhm,
all the
uncomfortable.
time.
yeah.
Yes, and we are, especially right now in the time when everything brings so much worries,
Oh, yeah.
fear, and we feel even more uncomfortable. And like you said many times, just kind of mute it as
Mhm,
much as you can, the outside, and feel even more like going within.
mhm. Not
Then,
shutting down when you go within,
yeah,
it's finding that beautiful connection. Because
yes,
we are all, no matter, to me, no matter what your beliefs are, I see where everybody is always connected to that divine source in which we come from.
yes,
We just become very dense in two ways. We're human, we have blood and bones and things, and we become dense. So our spirit goes from this to womp, 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 and then we spend a lifetime trying to figure out what in the world are we doing down here and where did we come from? And that's always the fun journey of trying to connect back.
It's like the
and
first
right now
part.
with the high vibration, and like you
Mhm.
said, also mentioned, it's much easier for us to tap it in, and like you said, go into the center and just connect. So yeah, we are really grateful and appreciate your stories.
Oh, well, thank you,
And
ladies, so
oh,
much for
and
allowing me the space. Very much. And thank you, everybody who's listening.
and
So,
I'm gonna add Sandy's website and more description on her bio in our description below. So if anyone would like to connect and experience your magic, they can just find your information in the description below. And Sandy, I have a feeling we will be seeing you on our channel soon enough.
well, I
Yeah.
would love to come back. Give me a
Great.
subject we can hone in on. All righty. Well, thank you again,
So
ladies.
thank you very much for being with us, for watching, for listening. This has been such a pleasure, and there's so many jewels you shared with us, so many useful, especially for these pivotal times of change that we're all going through at the moment. So
Mhm.
thank you, thank you, thank you. Many blessings to everyone, and till next time, take care.
Thank you.
Take care.